Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the ultimate slop. It doesn't get sloppier than this. PlayStation killing physical games. But not only that, what we're really focusing on today is PlayStation's absolute, not just killing, but they murdered gaming culture. As we've talked about across, I can't even track all these conversations I've had. I've talked to friends. It's like we all lost a loved one. You know, that's what it's been like here. But across all these conversations, a lot of the reflections have come back to the gaming culture. Yes, there's a lot about this with ownership. That is a huge part of this, buying something and owning it. But it's really about the culture of preservation, of being able to look at gaming history, to pull a game off your shelf 20 years down the line and to re-experience that or pass it on to someone else so they can experience it, creating new fans. That type of culture dies with this move that PlayStation's making, which for those who have been under a rock, who haven't been online, yeah, PlayStation ceasing all physical game production by January 2028. A move that, for those who are wondering why I'm going to keep my foot on their throat, I'm just, yeah, you can call it hopium, copium, whatever. I'm not giving up until the bell rings. I hope they reverse course. Do I think they will? No, there's a story in here that makes me think otherwise, but let's talk about the games industry reaction. I know all of you feel mostly the same as I do, which is just like, fuck these guys, right? But I'm curious what the pros are saying here. And so what we have is a roundup thanks to gamesindustry.biz, where it says game companies express dismay at the end of PlayStation disc production. And there's a whole lot in here, a whole lot of companies that really do serve the gaming collecting culture that have expressed how disappointed they are. Let's read the obituaries, dude. That's basically what we're doing. I Am 8-Bit says in a statement to gamesindustry.biz, the co-owners and creative directors John Gibson and Amanda White say, "We are profoundly disappointed by Sony's decision to suspend physical game production in 2028. Physical games are vital to game preservation, ownership, and consumer choice, values that have guided I Am 8-Bit since our first physical release in 2016. Our commitment to these values remains unchanged. Long live physical media." The thing that I'm wondering, like many of you, is, of course, like, what are these companies going to do? We'll talk about that in a little bit, but let's continue just the absolute onslaught of disappointment, right? None of these people raging out quite like I am, but a lot of just disappointed dad energy. Like, what? How about Atari? Atari's been doing a lot of great collections here. They highlight here. They did a collector's edition of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Rita's Rewind, the Thing remastered. Also, they are doing a Toy Story remaster. And this is important because they teamed up to do a physical release for that. So Toy Story 3's remaster is being preserved. So are all the retro roundup games. So like companies such as Atari doing physical is preserving old media that's extremely expensive or hard to find or hard to play, putting it on current platforms and then giving you a physical way to play them. So they're also really important in this conversation. We remain committed to game preservation and creating products for fans for whom collecting physical editions is an important part of their gaming experience, along with physical items that allow them to celebrate their favorite games, the firm told gamesindustry.biz. We strive to make the games we develop and publish as accessible as possible, which includes distributing physical editions whenever feasible. As the market evolves, we'll continue to explore new and compelling ways to satisfy collector demand. I love this. I love this energy. Don't give up. I know it's going to take more than these companies, but I like that no one's giving up. That makes me very happy to see. Silver Lining Interactive. This is a new one. Manchester-based Silver Lining Interactive often issues physical versions of its games after digital release. Founder Luke Karen describes this as a highly profitable part of their business. Quote, "We do not only have a very, very strong retail market, but a wholesale market as well," he told us earlier this year. Day one purchases are becoming more difficult for retail, but the catalog business is still extremely strong, which is exactly why PlayStation wants them out. Secondhand purchases hurt them. How many games have you picked up on sale at a used game store? Even GameStop. It's okay to admit it. I haven't shopped at GameStop in a while outside of the memes. Like when I'm talking legit, like I want to buy a game. It's been ages. So ignoring my whole Retro Rebound series for a moment. But all of us have bought used games at some point. That deal is so nice. And they want that out of your life so that they can keep the price the same. Have you seen how Nintendo games function? How long it takes for them to go on sales. And when they happen, your biggest discount is, oh, it went from $60 to $50. Yeah. Do you want that life for all these platforms? That's what you're inviting in. That's why you got to keep fighting. If a game does well on digital, it normally does well at retail. In a statement shared to LinkedIn, the company said it was obviously disappointed by the news and highlighted that there is still a large community of customers who still prefer and cherish their physical game collections. We are working with PlayStation to understand exactly how this transition will be implemented and what it means for independent publishers. While we seek clarity on the future, we want to offer absolute certainty about the present. The policy will not impact our existing library. The industry landscape is still settling after this announcement, but whatever form the future takes, Silver Lining Interactive is committed to both our developer partners and players. We will keep physical media available for as long as players want it. It concluded saying, we firmly believe in giving our community a choice wherever viable, and will continue working hard to deliver games in both digital formats and physical boxes, whether that means a disc, a cartridge, a key card, a code in a box. Slow down with those last two, please. It is time for us to put our creative hats on to see how we can continue bringing games to physical. So, okay, solution-oriented. Getting a little carried away. They're saying a physical counts even if it's code in box or game key card. Not quite. Figure it out. Lost in Cult. What do they have to say? They make amazing video game books, by the way. They do publish some physical editions of indie games, too. They say, as a company on a mission to preserve video games, we are deeply saddened by the recent news from PlayStation on ending physical discs, they said in a statement. We aim to do everything in our power to preserve video games to the best of our ability and will continue to do so for as long as we can. A lot of this is very bleak at the same time. I like that they're still fighting, but a lot of this is like, we're fighting till the end. We'll figure that out. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. The only one who said so far, like, we're talking to PlayStation and trying to just figure it out, has been Silverline. How about Limited Run? They were the first ones that came to mind for me. Obviously, we know Limited Run. They say Sony's decision to move fully digital marks the end of an era, and we understand why the math points that way for a platform holder at that scale. We have spent a decade alongside the fans and collectors who kept this flame alive long before us, proving that people still want to hold their games, to own them outright, and to keep them on a shelf for good. We are not slowing down either. So what I'm interested in for all these companies not slowing down is, what exactly is the answer here? What exactly are you going to do to keep this going? Again, my theory has been, if the PS6 is a marginal leap forward, maybe you don't get PS6 physical copies, but a lot of games for a while are going to be shipping cross-gen. So what's ending in 2028 for Sony might end in like 2030 for others, because you'll have that cross-gen period. If it's cross-gen like what we got for this generation, physical is going to be around a little while longer than I think we anticipate, because then you'll have PS5 games up until fucking like 2035. You know, we have Call of Duty just starting to drop PS4 support. Let's keep going. Strictly Limited writes, in a statement to GamesIndustry.biz, head of business unit Sasha Hoffman-Nowak said physical editions are highly relevant when it comes to ensuring players' ownership and preserving video game as a part of cultural heritage. So I'm talking about, bro, it's about heritage. It's about culture. We'll continue to releasing PS5 games physically for as long as possible, and we'll continue publishing physical editions of games regardless of the platform they appear on. Even if those platforms evolve, we do have a different approach to physical editions, such as releases in place. I wonder if there's ever a world where, like, you could do re-releases of old games, like do a new print run for, like, team up with Konami and do a new PS1 print run for Silent Hill. I don't know. I think every idea's got to be on the table right now. Then we have the Video Game History Foundation. They say, from the perspective of a professional preservationist, this doesn't have as much of an impact as you might expect. This is coming from the director themselves. The reality is that the vast majority of video games produced over the last 2 decades were not made for a dedicated home video game console, let alone pressed to physical media. And even when they were released on physical media, a day one digital patch was all but guaranteed, meaning that even though a disc is preserving data in an accessible way, it may not represent the game that people actually played. He added, what continues to baffle us is what the industry expects institutions like ours to do about it. If platform owners are deciding to eliminate physical media and older digital storefronts, then we'd like to see trade groups like the ESA offer meaningful solutions for archives and museums to legally preserve digital-only content and make it accessible for research. This is a big part of the conversation here. I talked about this a little bit on stream, but it's relevant once more here. Let's go to one of my favorite websites in Does It Play? Does It Play shows here, if I select from this drop-down bar, PS5, all these games here, you can see 94% of their games are eligible for online or offline play. 66% of 773 games on PS5 would not require a download, so over half. On PS4, a much bigger library, 73%. So many games are still available offline. There are situations like I was showing on stream here. We have Star Fox here. They show here on Does It Play that battle mode is inaccessible. So they can play the entire paths of the story mode here, but in order to access battle mode, they say a 1.5 gigabyte downloaded internet connection is required for access. So it's not perfect, but I think there are people who are weird like me will see this and go, okay, so I can access the part of the game I care most about. So when we go back to what the Video Game History Foundation is saying and taking a genuine look at what's going on here, it is about preservation of the biggest successes, the mediocre middle of the line stuff, the games that blur together, the indie hits, the indie gems, and even the biggest of flops. Yeah, let's bring up some games that I know for a fact you don't care about. Destruction All-Stars is now available offline. Most modes will be gone by November. This game's gradually getting erased. So there are some games like this. This was a 2021 launch era PlayStation 5 game you may have forgotten about. There are certain games that are being dissected for parts. This is one example. And yeah, people kind of just, they didn't feel anything about it. But should it go away forever? Here's where I might ruffle some feathers. I feel the same way about High Guard. This is the only game in 2026 thus far that I've had a negative review for. And even that, I called it kind of just middle of the road, inoffensive, like it's mid. That's really it. But I wasn't like Concord levels, it's bad. But I look at High Guard, I'm like, I would love for that to be around so developers coming into the industry don't have to watch videos, but can like play this game and understand like what made it mid, what made it interesting for some people, what made it bad for a lot of people. I think that's important. When we're erasing that stuff and it's just instantly inaccessible. This game came out and got delisted in the same year in a like 3-month span. And I don't think it's a game that I'm saying hold on to it forever because this matters. I love this game. But I do think that being able to preserve that type of media is super important for the history of the art. Like that is what it's there for, to really rub salt in some of your wounds. I feel the same way about Concord. It got a physical release and they immediately tried to rip it off store shelves and it became this highly sought after item. And that physical edition is nothing more than, you know, a coaster. But when they took this game down, I'm like, yeah, dude, this is another one where I talked about this in my interview with Mark Dara, where we both agreed that like these games should stay around in a sense of like not PlayStation has to pay for them, but they should be preserved in some way where you can still study them if you're a developer. I think that's the value that this game provides. It's awful. I don't like Concord at all. I don't care about it as a player, but should it be preserved as one of the most historic flops we've seen in our industry's history? Absolutely. 1000%. There's no doubt about it that this should be studied from top to bottom. Not just the what PlayStation was saying, like this is our next Star Wars. Are you out of your fucking minds? Beyond all of that, it's about the game itself, having that there preserved, because it's an important part of gaming history. It's a point where PlayStation went extremely wrong. And so is there any hope of turning this all around? Like I said, I'm not giving up, but like it's looking dire. Here's Engadget, who says that Sony has already invested $34 million to repurpose its EU PlayStation disc factory. Sony has been preparing for the end of disc-based games for some time, based on a report by ORF Salzburg, the regional publication of Austria's national broadcasting network. I just love when gaming gets this far out. I was like, I never even heard of this place, bro, but okay, let's rock with it. The management at Sony's Digital Audio Disc Corporation told ORF that the company has already invested $34 million into converting its disc factory in Salzburg into a plant for optical micro lenses. These changes have apparently been in the works for quite some time, though management only told Talgau workers about them on July 1st when Sony announced that they were going all in on digital starting in January 2028. Optical micro lenses can manipulate light and are typically used in camera sensors, AR/VR headsets, fiber optic networks, and medical devices. That's where your physical games are going. That's where they're going. They write here that they actually manufactured 600,000 discs per day. So they could have even slashed this operation and still kept it afloat. And not only that, they're not the only ones who are making discs. Right here, The Verge notes that the facility isn't the only one of Sony's disc-making factories. It's where DADC is based. DADC used to have a mass manufacturing factory in Indiana where they made 23 billion discs from 1983 until it closed in 2022. From that time until today, has manufactured 3.4 billion more discs. So like you could just slash this operation and keep it around, but they're just fully going in on micro lenses. Micro lenses. Come on, dude. This sucks. This is dystopian. Who gives a shit about that? Some people do. They're getting sued. There's already people lining up for a lawsuit. This is according to Niche Gamer here, where they write, Sony's facing legal challenges in multiple countries over allegations that the PlayStation Store operates as an illegal monopoly, with lawsuits accusing the company of restructuring competition and inflating digital game prices for millions of players. The largest case is currently underway in the United Kingdom, where a class action lawsuit representing around 12 million consumers is seeking $2.7 billion in damages. The claim argues that Sony's requirement for digital games, digital downloadable content, and in-game purchases to be sold exclusively through the PlayStation Store has eliminated price competition, leaving consumers to pay more than they would have in a competitive marketplace. Legal pressure is also increasing in the Netherlands, where a consumer foundation representing roughly 1.7 million players has successfully advanced its case through the courts. The lawsuit alleges that Sony's standard 30% commission offered by critics as the Sony tax has contributed to digital PlayStation games costing significantly more than their physical counterparts. If successful, the case would require Sony to allow third-party retailers to sell digital games while also paying more than $400 million in compensation. Meanwhile, Sony has already agreed to resolve a separate consumer case in California through a preliminary $7.8 million settlement, although that's a dispute that was considerably smaller in scope than the ongoing European litigation. Go, 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 dude. Take it to them. Can't stand this shit. So, yeah, to put it all in a nutshell here, it's a destruction of culture. It's a destruction of preservation. It's important to hold on to that stuff, even their flops. I think it's important to be able to see those through. They don't have to pay for the fucking servers, but a way to preserve it in an offline mode. That's what Too Many Games is about. It would have forced these devs to consider and publishers an only offline mode. Once the game was like a Destiny was shut down, that game's going to go away forever. But there were people who were trying to push from a legality standpoint to keep an offline mode for a game like that and to make that possible. But it would have cost these companies so much money. And that's why you had Ubisoft flying all over the place, fighting tooth and nail. It's fucking disgraceful how against you they are. And how there are people out there who, like I've seen on social media, there are people who are defending it, bending over backwards. As they said at the top of the first article we went over, it's a profoundly disappointing decision by Sony. And I hope they reverse course.